Hello, everybody, and welcome to another ASMR video where today I will be reading about the Florida Keys because I want to go and I just want to read about it. So, yeah, let's get started. Well, before we get started, you know, have y'all gone to the Florida Keys? Have y'all heard of it before? I've gone once and it was beautiful, and I've always wanted to go back. Hence why I'm gonna read about it today because I want to learn more about it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. And let's get into it. So I'm reading the Wikipedia page because I like to binge Wikipedia. I don't know if it's normal, but I just like to go down rabbit holes of Wikipedia pages for some reason. And I also like to read about like places and its history because I'm a nerd or something like that. But yeah, let's get started. The Florida Keys are a coral cay archipelago off the southern coast of Florida, forming the southernmost part of the continental United States. They begin at the southeastern coast of the Florida Peninsula, about 15 miles south of Miami, and extend in a gentle arc south-southwest and then westward to Key West, the westernmost of the inhabited islands, and onto the uninhabited Dry Tortugas. That's a national park that I really want to go to. It looks beautiful. I'll put a picture somewhere if y'all want to see. The islands lie along the Florida Straits, dividing the Atlantic Ocean to the east from the Gulf of Mexico to the northwest, and dividing one edge of Florida Bay. The southern part of Key West is 93 miles from Cuba. The Keys are located between about 24.3 and 25.5 degrees north latitude. More than 95% of the land area lies in Monroe County, but a small portion extends northeast into Miami-Dade County, such as Toten Key. The total land area is 137.3 square miles. That's cool. At the 2010 census, the population was 73,090, with an average density of 532.34 per square mile, or 205.54 kilometers squared for the non-Americans out there. Although much of the population is concentrated in a few areas of much higher density, such as the city of Key West, which has 32% of the Keys' total population. Wow. The 2014 census population estimate was 77,136, and the 2020 census population estimate was 82,874. So nearly a 10,000 person increase over 10 years. Estimated. That's kind of crazy. The city of Key West is the county seat of Monroe County. The county consists of a section on the mainland, which is almost entirely in Everglades National Park, and the Keys Islands from Key Largo to Dry Tortugas National Park. And I think I'm gonna do a whole other video about Dry Tortugas on its own because there's a lot of history behind it. There's like a big fort on it too, and like you can only get there by like boat or plane, and that's a whole different animal we gotta tackle in another video. But yeah. That was like the brief introduction of the Keys. Now we're moving on to the history of the Keys. The Keys were originally inhabited by the Calusa and Tequesta tribes, and were charted by, I'm gonna butcher this name, I'm sorry, Juan Ponce De Leon named the islands Los Martires, the martyrs, as they look like suffering men from a distance. What? Key is derived from the Spanish word Cayo. I don't know. I can't speak Spanish, sorry guys. Meaning small island. For many years, Key West was the largest town in Florida. Oh, for real. That's in like the entire state, or I guess territory, whatever it was at the time. That's kind of cool. And it grew prosperous on wrecking revenues. The isolated outpost was well located for trade with Cuba and the Bahamas. It was on the main trade route from New Orleans. Improved navigation led to fewer shipwrecks, and Key West went into a decline in the late 19th century. Overseas railway. The Keys were long accessible only by water. This changed with the completion of Henry Flagler's Overseas Railway in the early 1910s. Overseas Railroad. That looks like a whole different topic to read in another video as well. I'm like, you know, like you can like look at like hover over the blue like highlighted portions on Wikipedia and like shows you like what the other thing. I'm about to go down a rabbit hole, but before I do that, I gotta read the rest of this. Flagler, a major developer of Florida's Atlantic coast, extended his Florida East Coast Railway down to Key West with an ambitious series of overseas railroad trestles. 3 hurricanes disrupted the project in 1906, 1909, and 1910. That's just unlucky. 1935 Labor Day hurricane. The strongest hurricane to strike the U.S. made landfall near Isla Morada in the Upper Keys on Labor Day, Monday, September 2nd, 1935. That's crazy. Winds were estimated to have gusted 200 miles per hour, or 320 kilometers an hour. Wow. That's insane. Raising a storm surge more than 17.5 feet, or 5.3 meters, above sea level that washed over the islands. More than 400 people were killed. Some estimates place the number of deaths at more than 600. Wow. The Labor Day hurricane was one of only 4 hurricanes to make landfall at Category 5, strength on the U.S. coast since reliable weather records began at about 1850. The other storms were Hurricane Camille, Hurricane Andrew, and Hurricane Michael. Interesting. In 1935, new bridges were under construction to connect the highway through the entire Keys. Hundreds of World War I veterans working on the roadway as part of a government relief program were housed in non-reinforced buildings in 3 construction camps in the Upper Keys. When the evacuation train failed to reach the camps before the storm, more than 200 veterans perished. Their deaths caused anger and charges of mismanagement that led to a congressional investigation. The storm also ended the 23-year run of the Overseas Railway. The damaged tracks were never rebuilt, and the Overseas Highway, U.S. Highway 1, replaced the railroad as the main transportation route from Miami to Key West. That's interesting. Is that why there's like 2 bridges there? The 7 Mile Bridge, the famous bridge. It's actually really scenic and beautiful when you drive on it. One of the longest bridges when it was built. The 7 Mile Bridge connects Knights Key, part of the city of Marathon, in the Middle Keys, to Little Duck Key in the Lower Keys. The piling supported concrete bridge is 35,862 feet, 10,931 meters, or 6.79 miles, 10.93 kilometers long. The current bridge bypasses Fishing Key, a small island that housed Flagler's Florida East Coast Railway in the 1900s that the original 7-mile bridge crossed. A 2.2-mile section of the old bridge remains for access to the island, although it was closed to vehicular traffic on March 4th, 2008. So that's what the second bridge was. But that's cool that you can still see, like, 'cause I remember seeing a building there on that island. And that housed the people that were building the railway back in 1900. That's kind of cool. The aging structure has been deemed unsafe by the Florida Department of Transportation. Costly repairs, estimated to be as much as $34 million, were expected to begin in July 2008. Monroe County was unable to secure a $17 million loan to the State Infrastructure Bank, delaying work for at least a year. On June 14th, 2008, the old bridge section leading to the Fishing Keys was closed to fishing as well, while still open to pedestrians walking, biking, and jogging. If the bridge were closed altogether, only a ferry subsidized by FDOT and managed by the county would transport visitors to the island. I also remember seeing like a tree on the highway. I don't know if that's like I clearly remember there was like a bush and like a tree on the old highway bridge, and I was like, why is there a tree in the middle of the road? But I don't see it being mentioned in this article, so maybe I was just seeing. No, I'm 100% sure I saw something. I don't know. Overseas Highway. After the destruction of the Keys Railway by the Labor Day hurricane of 1935, the railroad bridges, including the 7-mile bridge, were converted to automobile roadways. This roadway, U.S. Highway 1, became the overseas highway that runs from Key Largo south to Key West. Today, this highway allows travel through the tropical islands of the Florida Keys and the viewing of exotic plants and animals found nowhere else on the U.S. mainland, the largest coral reef chain in the United States. Cuban exiles. Following the Cuban Revolution, many Cubans emigrated to South Florida. Key West traditionally had strong links with its neighbor 90 miles south by water, and large numbers of Cubans settled there. The Keys still attract Cubans leaving their home country, and stories of rafters coming ashore are not uncommon. The Conch Republic. In 1982, the United States Border Patrol established a roadblock and inspection point on U.S. Highway 1, stopping all northbound traffic returning to the mainland at Florida City to search vehicles for illegal drugs and undocumented immigrants. The Key West City Council repeatedly complained about the roadblocks, which were a major inconvenience for travelers and hurt the Keys' important tourism industry. After various unsuccessful complaints and attempts to get a legal injunction against the blockade failed in federal court in Miami, on April 23, 1982, Key West Mayor Dennis Wardlow and the City Council declared the independence of the city of Key West, calling it the Conch Republic. After 1 minute of secession, he, as Prime Minister, surrendered to an officer of the Key West Naval Air Station and requested $1 billion in foreign aid. The stunt succeeded in generating great publicity for the Keys' plight, and the inspection station roadblock was removed. The idea of the Conch Republic has provided a new source of revenue for the Keys by way of tourist keepsake sales, and the Conch Republic has participated in later protests. I do remember seeing a lot of merchandise there about the Conch Republic. Excuse me. Geology. The northern and central sections of the Florida Keys are the exposed portions of an ancient coral reef Largo limestone. The northernmost island arising from the ancient reef formation is Elliott Key in Biscayne National Park. North of Elliott Key are several small transitional keys composed of sand built up around the small areas of exposed ancient reef. Further north, Key Biscayne, and places north are barrier islands built up of sand. The islands in the southwestern part of the chain, from Big Pine Key to Marquesas Keys, are exposed areas of Miami limestone. The Florida Keys have taken their present form as a result of drastic changes in sea level associated. Why'd my camera unfocus? What the? We were doing just fine. What happened? Oh, there we go. The Florida Keys have taken their present form as the result of the drastic changes in sea level associated with recent glaciations or ice ages. Beginning some 130,000 years ago, the Sangamonian stage raised sea levels about 25 feet, 7.6 meters, above the current level. All of southern Florida was covered by a shallow sea. Several parallel lines of reef formed along the edge of the submerged Florida platform, stretching south and then west from the present Miami area to what is now the Dry Tortugas. This reef formed the Key Largo limestone that is exposed on surface from Soldier Key, midway between Key Biscayne and Elliott Key, to the southeast portion of Big Pine Key and the newfound Harbor Keys. The types of coral that formed Key Largo limestone can be identified on the exposed surface of the keys. Minor fluctuations in sea level exposed parts of the reef, subjecting it to erosion. Acidic water, which can result from decaying vegetation, dissolves limestone. Some of the dissolved limestone redeposited as a denser cap rock, which can be seen as outcrops overlying the Key Largo and Miami limestones throughout the Keys. The limestone that eroded from the reef formed oolites in the shallow sea behind the reef, and together with the skeletal remains of bryozoans form the Miami limestone that is the current surface bedrock of the lower Florida peninsula. And the lower Keys, from Big Pine Key to Key West. To the west of Key West, the ancient reef is covered by recent calcareous sand, while the islands of the upper and middle Keys, consisting of Key Largo limestone, form a long, narrow arc. The islands of the lower Keys are perpendicular to the line of that arc. This configuration arose from an ancient tidal bar system in which tidal channels cut through a submerged oolitic deposit. The bars solidified into Miami limestone, and with changes in sea level, are presently exposed as the islands, while the channels between the bars now separate the islands. Just offshore of the Florida Keys, along the edge of the Florida Straits, is the Florida Reef, also known as the Florida Reef Tract. The Florida Reef extends 170 miles, or 270 kilometers, from Bowie Rocks, just east of Soldier Key, to south of the Marquesas Keys. It is the third largest barrier reef system in the world. Bowie Rocks Light. Interesting. I'm gonna check that real quick. Seems to be like a little lighthouse. crazy. Like all of southern Florida used to be underwater. Like that's really crazy to think about because like we're like it's above ground now. But just like a couple million years ago, I guess. I mean it's a long time, but like a couple million years ago, we would have been underwater. That's just mind blowing. It's crazy to think about. Environment. The climate and environment of the Florida Keys are closer to that of the Caribbean than the rest of Florida. Though, unlike the Caribbean's volcanic islands, the Keys were built by plants and animals. Interesting. The Upper Key Islands are composed of sandy type accumulations of limestone grains produced by plants and marine organisms. The Lower Keys are the remnants of large coral reefs which became fossilized and exposed when the sea level dropped. Wow. The natural habitats of the Keys are upland forests, inland wetlands, and shoreline zones. Soil ranges from sand to marl to rich, decomposed leaf litter. In some places, caprock. The eroded surface of coral formations covers the ground. Rain falling through leaf debris becomes acidic and dissolves holes in the limestone where soil accumulates and trees root. Flora and fauna. The Florida Keys have distinctive plant and animal species, some found nowhere else in the United States. As the Keys define the northern extent of their ranges, the climate also allows many imported plants to thrive. Some exotic species which arrived as landscape plants now invade and threaten natural areas. The native flora of the Keys is diverse, including members of both temperate families such as red maple, slash pine, and oaks, growing at the southern end of their ranges, and tropical families including mahogany, gumbo limbo, stoppers, Jamaican dogwood, and many others, which grow only in tropical climates. Several types of palms are native to the Florida Keys, including the Florida thatch palm, which grows to its greatest size in Florida on the islands of the Keys. The Keys are also home to unique animal species, including the American crocodile. They live all the way out there. Interesting. Key deer, protected by the National Key Deer Refuge, and the Key Largo wood rat. The Keys are part of the northernmost range of the American crocodile, which is found throughout the neotropics. So that interesting. So the Key Largo. So like it says neotropical realm here on Wikipedia. It's showing most of South America and like Florida barely, like only the southern part of Florida is highlighted. So northernmost range of the American crocodile. That's interesting. The Key Largo wood rat is found only in the northern part of its namesake island and is the focus of management activities in Crocodile Lake National Wildlife Refuge, about 70 miles, 110 kilometers, west of Key West, is Dry Tortugas National Park. I really want to go there. I already said that earlier, but like, it would be nice. The waters surrounding the Keys are part of a protected area known as the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. Climate. The climate of the Florida Keys is tropical savanna. Other than some areas of coastal Miami Beach, the Florida Keys are the only areas in the continental United States to never report freezing temperatures since settlement. Wow. The record low in Key West is 41 degrees Fahrenheit, or 5 degrees Celsius, in both 1886 and 1981, and low temperatures below 48 degrees Fahrenheit, 9 degrees Celsius. West is Zone 12A. If I remember correctly, like a couple years ago, like there was like a sudden cold front, or whatever, and like the lizards in Key West were like frozen. I remember something like hearing something like that. I don't know. There are two main seasons. In the Florida Keys. A hot and wet season from June through October, and a dry season from November through April that features little rainfall, sunny skies, and warm, breezy conditions. The warm and sunny winter climate, with average highs around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 24 degrees Celsius, and lows above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Celsius, is the main tourist season in the Florida Keys. Key West is the driest city in Florida, and most of the Florida Keys can become quite dry at the height of the dry season. Some of the more exposed vegetation in the Keys is scrub, stunted due to the intense sun, quick draining sandy soil, and arid winter climate. It's showing like a table of climate data from Key West International Airport from 1991 to 2020 for normals, and extremes from 1872 to present. So in December, the mean daily temperature is only 77 degrees, or 25.4 degrees Celsius. That's crazy. Record low, 41 degrees. Wow. The weather's nice year round. And the record high is only 97 degrees Fahrenheit, 36 degrees Celsius. So, like, it gets hot, but like, not like, hot like some other places, like Las Vegas or Arizona or Texas. That's crazy. Or Florida even. Wow. And it rains the most in September, 15.8 inches of average precipitation, 15.8 average precipitation days, and 7.24 average inches of rain in September. That's great. Tropical cyclones. The Keys are occasionally threatened by tropical storms and hurricanes, leading to evacuations to the mainland. Hurricane Georges, after destroying much of the housing and infrastructure on many of the Caribbean islands, caused damage and extensive flooding in the lower Keys in 1998, before making landfall in Mississippi in 2005. In 2005, Hurricanes Katrina, Rita, and Wilma affected the Keys, although none made a direct hit, causing widespread damage and flooding. The most severe hurricane to hit the area was the Labor Day hurricane of 1935, a Category 5 hurricane. I might read up on that on its own as well, because it's a very interesting topic. Extremely powerful and devastating Atlantic hurricane that struck the southeast United States in early September 1935. Wow. Tropical cyclones present special dangers and challenges to the entire Keys because no area of the island is more than 20 feet above sea level, and many are only a few feet elevation, and water surrounds the islands. Nearly every neighborhood is subject to flooding, as well as hurricane winds. In response, many homes in the Keys are built on concrete stilts, with the first floor being not legally habitable and enclosed by breakaway walls that are not strongly attached to the rest of the house. Nonetheless, Monroe County, as reported in the Federal Register, has estimated that there are between 8,000 and 12,000 illegal enclosures inhabited by people. Because of the threat from storm surge, estimates for evacuating the entire Keys range from 12 to 24 hours. Evacuation estimates are significant in emergency planning, of course, but also because they are a factor in local and state regulations for controlling development. The building permit allocation was increased in 2005 when local governments reduced estimates for evacuation. On September 10th, 2017, Hurricane Irma made landfall in Cujo Key. The storm destroyed an estimated 25% of the houses on the Keys, and another 65% suffered major damage. Most residents had evacuated before the storm hit the area. On September 12th, parts of the Keys were still inaccessible by the causeway, and some areas were closed to the public. Governor Rick Scott reported devastation. Most areas were without power or water. The damage was the worst in the lower Keys, though less severe in Key West. Parts of the lower Keys may be uninhabitable for months. And then it has like the list of the major islands. U.S. Highway 1, the overseas highway, runs over most of the inhabited islands of the Florida Keys. The islands are listed in order from southwest to north. Mile markers are listed for keys that the overseas highway runs across or near. So it goes from Dry Tortugas, which is the west or the southwesternmost, all the way to Soldier Key. Key Biscayne is not one of the Florida Keys, but the southernmost of the barrier islands along the Atlantic coast of Florida. So it shows all the islands that are a part of the Keys. Dry Tortugas, Key West. It also shows the mile markers. So Key West is mile 0 through 4. And then we got like, I remember Marathon Key was one of the bigger ones, or if not the biggest island on the key in the island chain. My camera's not focusing again. There we go. But yeah, that's basically a list of all the major islands, and then we have transportation, culture. There's like 2 more sections, and we're done with the page. Lots of good info though. I think because this is more about like the Florida Keys in general, not just Key West. So I think I'll read the Key West one in another video as well. But transportation, the main chain of Keys Islands can be traveled by motor vehicle on the overseas highway, which runs from Key West to Fort Kent, Maine. Wow. In its entirety. The highway was built parallel to the original route of the overseas highway, which was not rebuilt following the Labor Day hurricane of 1935. Even before the hurricane, road sections and highway bridges allowed automobile traffic to travel from Miami to Lower Matacumbe Key, where a car ferry connected with another roadway section to the Lower Keys. Following the hurricanes, some of the original railway bridges were converted to carry the highway roadbeds. These bridges were used until the 1980s, when new highway bridges were built alongside. Many of the original railroad and highway bridges remain today as pedestrian fishing piers. I noticed that while traveling through it. That's crazy that it goes from Key West all the way to Maine. So it just travels the entire East Coast. Wow, that's crazy. Public transportation. The Florida Keys has public bus transportation. That's cool. Road hazards. Despite the reconstruction, US 1 was not widened on a large scale, and today most of the route consists of just 2 lanes. Due to their tropical climate, the Florida Keys attract several 100,000 tourists annually. While some visitors arrive arrive via Key West International Airport and Florida Keys Marathon Airport. In Marathon, cruise ship or ferry from Miami, Fort Myers, or Marco Island, Florida. The vast majority of tourists drive down the mainland on US 1. This influx of traffic, coupled with the two-lane nature of US 1, through most of its length in the Keys, and the fact that no alternative routes are available, mean that Monroe County has the highest per capita rate of fatal automobile accidents in the state of Florida. That's unfortunate. Culture and recreation. The major industries are fishing and tourism, including ecotourism, with many tourists scuba diving in the area's protected waters. A ferry takes riders between Key West and Fort Myers, as well as Marco Island, due north on the mainland along the western edge of Florida Bay. Dark skies recreation. Middle and lower Florida Keys are among a few remaining South Florida dark skies. Locations accessible by car. Few remaining South Florida dark skies are locations accessible by car. Thanks to their position along the Atlantic Ocean, and therefore with southern skies, unobstructed by light pollution associated with urban development. Scout Key is home to Winter Star Party, a prominent annual amateur astronomy event in the United States. I did not know that. That's cool. One of the top 10 star parties in the world, according to BBC Sky at Night. It is an international gathering that attracts 500 plus people each year who enjoy stargazing, astrophotography, and Milky Way photography. I kind of want to check that out. I love looking at like stars and stuff, and it just sucks out light pollution. Just makes everything not visible. Bahia Honda State Park is a well-known dark skies location among locals, offering unobstructed views of the southern night sky year-round. It also hosts amateur astronomy gatherings. Interesting. That is everything the page has. Very interesting read. It has some pictures of 25-second long exposure of Milky Way at Scout Key, April 2018. That's beautiful. 20-second long exposure of Bahia Honda State Park, Milky Way, October 2016. I didn't know there was a state park in the Keys as well. That's good to know. Wow. It's just crazy how islands like these exist, and they're so beautiful. If you haven't gone before, I highly recommend checking Key West or the Florida Keys out in general. Beautiful water, great weather. I enjoyed it a lot when I went, and it was a lot of fun, and I hope I can go again soon. But yeah, that was the Florida Keys. That was a lot of fun reading it. Lots of good information, things I didn't know. Didn't know they stopped building the railroad because of the hurricane. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, let me know if y'all enjoyed that. Any feedback in the comments is nice. I hope it was relaxing. Some of y'all might be asleep right now. If that's the case, I hope you sleep well and have a good night or good day, good nap, whatever you're doing, whatever time it is, or whatever. So yeah, I enjoyed reading that. I think I would do some more of this because I like reading just like random facts and just history about places and things while just relaxing and recording a video for people. So yeah, hope y'all enjoyed. I will be making more content like this in the future. But for now, sleep well.